and keep in mind, this is where it comes from. 60 years ago, half the Jewish population of Europe was exterminated. They get their own state, and they're faced with a country that is, developing nuclear arms, and every single day, some mullah or some political leader in Iran is saying, "We're going to kill the Jews. This is the weapon that we're going to use to destroy the Jewish state and the remnant that survived the Holocaust." So this has bred a consensus in Israel that something has to be done. The only question is when, and this is how it affects us, because the when has a lot to do with this election. And here's my take on it. Right now, we don't know who's going to win the presidency, right? But in Israel, if there's a significant chance that they see Obama being reelected in 2012, then they're going to roll the dice before the election. They're going to take Iran's nukes out, or try to, before the election, which means October. They're going to wait until the last minute. They're not going to do it in September. It's going to happen in October. So we're in the, they always talk about an October surprise. This is a very predictable October surprise. And it changes the dynamics of the election, because, does it make people less likely to throw out an incumbent that they're really not too happy with? You look at his, approval ratings, and they're abysmal. But do you change horses in midstream? I'm sure there's some people who are going to say that's not a good idea, because if Israel, you also have to look at how Israel might do this. They may use tactical nuclear weapons. You know what that means. This is like a major, humongous international crisis.
Let me ask you this. Yeah, the Defense Department admits many nukes are being looked at. They've got bunker busters that carry nukes. Russia's threatening, lining up weapons. Why are the mullahs and the Ayatollah making statements like, we're going to wipe the Zionists off the map? Why are they doing that when they could back off and not have the war?
Why are the Iranians doing that?
Yes.
It's puzzling, because I think that in some ways, I think there's a battle going on inside the Iranian camp. Iran also feels, to an extent, that its back is up against the wall. We tend to think of I think Americans think of the Muslim world. They don't understand there is not unity in the Muslim world. Iran is more fearful of Saudi Arabia than they are of Israel. They hate the Saudi more than they hate Israel. And there's a battle going on inside the Muslim world essentially between the Shiites and the Sunnis. And what they see, this is an accurate view. They're right about this. The Saudis, to a great extent, control U.S. foreign policy. It's just that simple.
That's right. No one ever talks about Saudi Arabia. Obviously, Israel's in there manipulating as well, but no one, this is when I get major heat. If you talk about Saudi power in media, you name it, in politics, it is incredible. And that's my next point. They're openly sending al-Qaeda and jihadis in with NATO backing to bring down Libya, to bring down Syria. Iran sees this and understands they're 20% of the population, Shiite. They see the Sunnis taking over, backed up by the great Satan. And so here is the United States and NATO allied with al-Qaeda against the Shiites, and then Israel's being threatened by Iran, and so they want to attack. This is like a Mexican standoff.
It would not be an exaggeration to say that the U.S. military has been doing the bidding of the Saudis all along. When we're involved in Iraq and Kuwait, and now in Syria, you say, well, what are the national interests the U.S. has in these operations? And they're very hard to figure out. But the Saudi interests are clear. And when every president leaves office, what happens? They all get these, million endowments from the Saudis. It's like, it's one of the rewards of becoming a U.S. president is when you leave office, the Saudis take care of it.
Yeah, they pay $1 million every time you give a speech. It's a public foreign government payoff. But here's my issue. I see the Saudi government begging Israel to strike Iran. And I know Israel bashing is the religion over there. But why then is Israel playing into that? And why is Saudi Arabia, how can they get away with begging Israel to attack another Muslim country? I mean, it's amazing how complex it is. And then people, in the West just want to make it Arabs, glass parking lot them, and, not knowing how diverse it is.
Yeah. Well, what Israel does is it plays its neighbors off one another. That's how it has managed to, in addition to having a very efficient and strong military, it plays one-off politics with these folks. One day, Hamas is the bad guy and the Palestinian Authority are the good guys, and it switches every once in a while, and that's what they do. I mean, you just go look at a map. Israel's a little sliver of a country surrounded by 300 million Muslims in the immediate...
But how is it going to help Israel if they attack Iran and unify Muslims and then get attacked from all sides? I guess it'll help the politicians to have a big giant war where they can all be heroes, including Obama. So Israel's going to strike, and I think it's going to put Obama in the White House.
Well, I think that if they do it in October, it strengthens Obama's hand. So if Obama looks like he's even got a very good chance of winning the election in November, I believe you're going to see this happen in October. And the reason for that is because they know that if they wait until after the election, Obama will not, he'll pull the rug out from under Israel. He can't do that before the election because Israel is popular with the American people. The American people will basically look at it as, this is a country fighting for its survival. And so So
they think once he's a lame duck that he'll put more pressure. So
yeah,
it's basically pushing ahead the timetable.
Exactly.
So
and
what do you think is going to happen
throughout the Middle East right now? By the way.
Sure. I mean, it's even coming out in mainstream news. That's basically what's going on, and you've got sources as well. So what's going to end up happening? I mean, is it leaning towards war or is it leaning away?
Well, I was talking to Jerry Corsi about this. We're stuck here in our hotel rooms yesterday, and it's funny because he happens to be very informed in this area, and I got my own sources in this area, and he disagrees. He doesn't think Israel's going to attack before the election. Listen, I hope there's no war. I mean, I hope things can be resolved without war, but...
oh, yeah, Obama is going to use this for a giant power grab. They've got martial law ready. Stay there. We'll take calls. Now that Ron Paul's out of the way, the New York Times can report that he had more than 10,000 people at the alternate convention Paul Fest, and Paul never even really promoted that because I guess he wanted to leave things open for Rand to get a speaking slot and things and be part of the mainline Republican Party. I guess Obama unifies everybody. Pretty amazing. And you can tell the establishment doesn't like Ron Paul the way they've treated him. For people that attack him and say he's establishment, they are completely off the reservation. I want to jam in a few calls from Jerry and from Rob and others here for Joseph Farah. But briefly, your take on Ron Paul. Let me stop you. We didn't have you faded up. Go ahead and start over, sir.
Yeah, I think Ron Paul has, if he's accomplished nothing else, has built an amazing foundation for the future. For his son Rand, I think the possibilities for Rand, based on the movement that Ron Paul has built, are practically limitless. This is one of the real, I think, great developments over the last 8 years. Is what Ron Paul has accomplished, a real grassroots movement, so I mean...
No, you're right. I was critical of the enthusiastic endorsement of Romney, which I think was a miscalculation, if you want to get just political, by Rand. But in a way, I do see them actually winning races against people like Dewhurst and others. I actually see them getting more constitutionalists in and kind of trying to retake the Tea Party in a way. I'm seeing some real success.
Yeah, I think Rand is a little more disarming politically than Ron Paul is. I think, Ron Paul scares, even a lot of conservatives with some of his positions, the way he talks. But Rand Paul is a little bit more refined and has a kind of a quieter approach, reasoned approach. And, I don't know anybody who doesn't like Rand Paul. I mean, this is a guy he's so persuasive. He persuades establishment Republicans in the Senate to vote right. So I think he's got a tremendously bright future, and a lot of it he has to thank his dad for.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, they're not perfect, but look at the alternative. Obama, who openly says he believes citizens shouldn't be able to own guns when he was a state senator.
Right.
I mean, again, I don't believe in lesser two evils, but when you've got people that are flaming revolutionaries, we don't need to get all worked up and energized hating on people that we agree with more.
Exactly.
We need to politically get out there and wake people up. Let's jam in a call. Mm-hmm. One caller who was holding just hung up. So let's go to Jerry in Illinois. You're on the air with Joseph Farah, go ahead.
Good afternoon, both of you, Alex and Joe. Very nice to talk to you. First-time caller. I've been a listener for almost 2 years, and I got to thank you for opening my eyes. My question about the presidential race this year, I don't want to go and vote for Mickey Mouse again because we've been given the opportunity of voting for the worst of two evils, and I have been sick of that since 2000 and Al Gore and Bush. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, do you have any ideas? I was thinking of a write-in for Ron Paul or Rand Paul even.
Well, listen, we're almost on exactly the same page. 2000, I couldn't vote for either candidate. I announced that publicly. Even though, Gore was, to me, much worse than Bush. I just didn't. What convinced me, and I don't know if I mentioned this before on the air, Alex, is in 2000.
Stay there. I want to hear this. Back in 1 minute. You stay there too, Jerry. We are now into the third hour. We're going to look at weather manipulation and what's really going on with the chemtrail program with a filmmaker coming up. We'll continue with your calls. Talking to Joseph Farah of WorldNetDaily. You were talking about what made you make up your mind. Was it in the 2000 election? 04? Yeah, go ahead.
Inclined to never voting for the lesser of two evils. And there's a distinction between voting for the lesser of two evils and, listen, there's never going to be the perfect candidate out there. No, there's no such thing. We're all even Alex Jones wouldn't be the perfect candidate. We'd find something wrong with Alex Jones. We'd find something wrong with Farah. I might not even be able to vote for myself. But in 2000, I met Bush, and he was at a very small group. He was asked this question: if a piece of legislation winds up on your desk as president and it's clearly unconstitutional, what will you do? Softball question. His answer was, how will I know if it's unconstitutional? And I was stunned, and I said, I can't vote for this guy with that position.
No, he threw a lawyer flip-flop thing in there.
Constitutionality, believing in the Constitution is critical to deserve our support.
So because he was bad, you were basically out of it.
I was out of it. And, but, in 2004, I listened to the Swift Boat guys, and they got my heart. And, for that reason, I jumped back in and supported Bush, despite all the terrible things he'd done over the previous 4 years. The principle is there. But as we talked about the last time I was on your show, Alex, I think sometimes you have to vote defensively. And this is probably one of those rare occasions where I think it's so important for us to defeat the incumbent who is, marching us into a police state as rapidly as any president we've ever seen in our lifetime, that's for sure.
Well, listen, I agree overall with what you're saying. My only issue is he's carrying out the agenda of the globalist, and we need to start getting people to vote locally at the state level at 50,